Hey guys, so it's Daryl and I'm back. This is my 6-month update, self-studying through the M.I.A approach. So I'm going to do a really quick introduction. If you want to check out my longer one, go and watch the other video. So I started studying Japanese at university, found I wasn't really liking it, so I was looking around for different approaches, landing on like the Let's Learn Japanese M.I.A Jcat thing. So one of the issues I had with uni was it was really slow. We were working through Genki 1, but it took the whole year to go through it. We still didn't finish it. But having looked at some of the other things, like some people recommended RTK, I'd already done RTK at that point once, and I could see they made a massive improvement in like my uni work. So I ended up getting like one of the highest grades in the year for my reading and writing just from having done RTK once badly. So I guess that leads me on to my RTK section. I'm just going to talk a little bit about them. So the reason RTK is good is because it breaks it down into the components of the kanji. So you learn one component and then all the combinations you can use for that one before learning a new component, which makes it really easy to go through them quite methodically and really quickly, as opposed to how it was taught in uni, where it was, this is a common kanji, this is all the readings for it, and it just was a massive problem with memory interference. So like we got two kanji that meant change the same day, and like the readings were very similar, and it was just kind of like a nightmare to remember which one was which. Whereas going through this, you can memorize thousands of kanji in a relatively short period of time. At uni we did 280 kanji in a whole year, whereas I was challenged to go back through these, and I did the first book in 80 days, so that's 2,200 kanji in 80 days. I was doing 30 to 35 a day, which was probably a bit too much. I was doing them like traditional way, so I read thousands upon thousands of them over 6 months. So I guess I'll just talk a bit about the problems with RTK. Not necessarily problems with RTK, but the way I did it. I think I did too many a day. I was too impatient, which meant by the time I'd finish RTK 1, I basically burnt myself out, so I didn't finish RTK 3. A lot of people are saying now to do the 1,000 most common kanji and just do them recognition style, so you just recognize the kanji, you don't have to produce it, you don't have to write it down, which I think is probably a less stressful way, and then you can move on to the more enjoyable stuff. They're going to build your knowledge quicker, and then when you get to a level where you already understand Japanese and you want to start producing the writing, you can go back and redo it the way that perhaps I did it, but slower, but with then Japanese keywords as opposed to English keywords. So I was working on RTK throughout the last semester of the uni year, and then throughout the summer I worked on the JLPT Tango books. I'm now currently halfway through the N3. Because I had a lot of time just to study over the summer, I was doing them at 35 new words a day, which was 70 cards, I think. I've been really liking them. I found the N5 book, I probably already knew about 40% of that, and then the percentage that I knew was dropping per book kind of thing, so by the time I got to N3 it was only like 15% of it that I already knew. So the decks that I got didn't have kanji, especially in the N5 book. It was rare that you'd find a kanji, so I was putting in kanji for all the words. So I would look up on Jisho for example sentences, and if I could see the word used a kanji, I would use it even if there was only like one example of it. This probably meant that for some vocab words I'm using kanji when Japanese people wouldn't, but I think that would be an easy fix later down the road. I'd just be like, well, that's the word, it's not used in kanji, great, whatever. So the way I would study this is for the use of Anki, I would listen to the sentence and then I would check that I knew it.
刻む野菜を細かく刻みます
then I'd read
刻
it.
む
野菜を細かく刻みます。
And then I would read it and check that I understood all the grammar points and then move on. So for some cards, it would have just the reading, so I would read the sentence and then check that I would know all the readings for all of the kanji.
取り出す
電子レンジから温めた野菜を取り出します。
So one positive of learning kanji this way through the sentences is that you start to get an intuitive grasp of the kanji readings. So, for example, sometimes I will see a new kanji combination, but I will recognize some of the components of the kanji. So I can have an educated guess on how they're going to sound. Sometimes I'll get it wrong, sometimes I get it right. It's not 100%, but I'd say 35% of the time I can be like, I know what that's going to sound like. That doesn't mean I know what it means, I still have to look that up, but it's starting to get a bit better. So in my last video I mentioned that I didn't feel like I was getting enough immersion, and I still definitely feel like that's the case. I'm still trying to balance everything. Obviously I'm a university student. I try to exercise and I'm trying to do this, so it's hard to find time, though I know that's an excuse, but I'll work on it. But I definitely feel like the immersion's starting to have an effect. So one of the big problems I had with university was that I just couldn't understand anything at all. But now, through doing this approach, it's getting to the point where I'm starting to feel like I'm understanding a lot more of my immersion. It depends what I'm watching or reading, but I've heard a lot of people saying there's like a few different stages. So the first stage is you just picking out one word here or there. And you're like, oh, I recognise hello or goodbye or something. And then you start recognising like set phrases, and then eventually you start recognising full scenes, and then the last ones you just recognise a lot of it. So depending on what I'm watching, sometimes I only pick out one or two words if it's a really complicated thing. But other times I'm like, well, I've just understood the last 3 minutes of speech pretty much. Obviously there'd be a few words here or there, but for the most part I understood. That's a lot rarer though, it doesn't happen a lot. So when I'm immersing, I try not to use subs and just listen. But if I do use subs, I feel like there's another jump up, so my reading is helping even more. So I did plan to test it a little bit to see how much I was progressing. So pretty much at the start of the 6 months I took the Jcat to see how well from university I was doing, and I scored a 131 on the Jcat, which puts you in like the M3 kind of level. And I thought that was like a lot higher than I was expecting. I think I know why that was, because there was no button for like I don't know this answer, and I was really impatient. I was just trying to click random ones to get them wrong if I didn't know it. But that meant occasionally I was clicking the one that happened to be right, and you'd know immediately that it was right because you'd get a more difficult question the next time. So I think that skewed the result a lot. But just before doing this, I retook the Jcat and I got a 132, so it's only a 1 point difference. But I changed the way I did it. If I didn't know a question, I just let the timer go. I never guessed any of them. So the ones that I got right, I knew I was confident with. And if I wasn't confident, I just let it go, kind of thing. So there was a slight improvement, and I wasn't guessing any of them. So I'm happy with that, and it kind of makes sense. It's like a low N3 level comparison, and I'm working through the N3 book. It like makes a lot more sense than when I was working through the N5 book and got the same kind of score. I don't think the Jcat is necessarily always completely accurate. I think sometimes it overestimates your level. I think the way I did it this time was a little bit better. I'm a little bit more convinced that that's probably where my level is. But it's just a test at the end of the day. It was just a bit of fun. I'm not taking it too seriously. So my plan for the next 6 months is to finish the N3 book and then start sentence mining from shows I'm watching or books I'm reading. through the use of Morphman if I can figure out how to use it. I'm not particularly tech savvy, so that's going to be a bit of fun. Probably going to then start going through the monolingual deck that Matt's made. There's already some monolingual definitions on some of my cards anyway, and some of them I can read, some of them are a bit harder. So like some of my cards come with the monolingual definition, and this is an example of one that I can read. Not all of them are that easy. I saw one for physics that was like a page long. So yeah, probably towards the end of that 6 months I want to start making the monolingual transition, start using the Japanese dictionary a lot more. I do it occasionally just for fun, but I want to take it a bit more seriously. One issue I think I'm going to face in the next 6 months is I'm going to have to start outputting a lot more than I'd like to. I don't really want to be doing any, but obviously I'm at university as part of my course, I have to do it. And next year I'm doing my exchange program in Japan, and I'm going to have to output there. I mean, I could do it silently, but I don't really want to do that. I want to have a good time while I'm there. Even if it means I pick up a lot of bad habits that I have to undo, I think it'll be worth it for the experience of having lived there for a year. I'm also starting to, as you can probably see from the background, look a little bit into pitch accent. I want to go a bit more in depth on that. I think the M.I.A. Japanese support plugin that has the coloured pitch accent words, I think that could be a help. But again, it's going to be a bit of a ball ache to set up, but it's something I'm going to try and do in the next 6 months. So yeah, I think that's about it for this video. My next one's probably going to be in about February time, so I'll see you then, hopefully. Hopefully I'll be a lot better by then. Peace out. So I'm just editing up the video and I realised I haven't actually talked about how I found the Tango books and what they consist of. So I'm going to link some YouTubers that explain them in more detail, how to use them and stuff. And I'll link to like Matt vs Japan's page and stuff in the description. So if you want to learn more, check out the description.